Welcome to the Minds of E-commerce podcast, where you'll learn one key strategy that made leading e-commerce companies grow exponentially. We cut the bullshit and keep the meat. In a 15-minute episode, founders and executives take us through a deep dive of a strategy so you get to learn and grow your online sales. In the last episode, you heard from Jeff Cayley, CEO of Worldwide Cyclery, who shared how he created a customer service strategy that is the backbone of their growth to nearly $15 million a year in sales. Today, on episode number 10, get ready. Abby Walker, CEO and founder of Vivian Lou, will share how she works with agencies and runs $1 million e-commerce store with no employees. I'm your host, Raphael Paulin-Daigle, and I'm the founder of SplitBase, a conversion optimization agency for fashion and lifestyle direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands. This is Minds of E-commerce. All right, welcome, Abby. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to be on the Minds of E-commerce podcast.
Absolutely. So excited to be here.
Yeah, so as you know, this show is really about diving deep into your business and really looking at the things that made it super successful. Now, just to give us some context, when did you launch Vivian Lou?
I launched it in the fall of 2014.
Fall of 2014, pretty recent
Yes.
business. It's not something that's been around for 20 years. And yet, you've been really successful at growing it, considering people need to hear this out because this is really impressive. You've grown to north of $4 million in sales with no employees, no investors, and yeah, literally just you and one very successful product, right? So Vivian, so tell us more about that.
Sure. So quickly, I launched in 2014, this with one insole. Literally, it was just one version of our insole. And it was really a hobby job. So I didn't spend much time, still had a full-time job. I was a working mom with 2 young kids. My husband worked a full-time job. It wasn't until I was really determined to figure out Facebook ads in late 2016 that the company took off. So in the fall of 2016, I was able to quit corporate America and really focus on growing Vivian Liu. We now have 2 versions of our insoles, Classic and Couture. And like you said, last year closed 2018 with north of $4 million in sales.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
congrats on that.
Thanks.
Now, you've also mentioned in our previous conversations that one of your key strategy for success was focusing on your instinct, right? So it's really looking at things and knowing how it feels. And we hear that piece of advice pretty often, you'll feel your gut. But one of the main things that I'm interested in knowing is you've grown this business to a scale where, yes, you need to feel your gut, but you also kind of need to look at data and see what works and what doesn't. So tell me, when you're making a decision, and let's say, you know, we're staying in the realm of marketing and growth decisions, how do you make those decisions? How do you look at growth decisions, marketing decisions, and still feel that gut feeling? How do you balance it out?
Sure. So as we had talked about earlier, really one of the key things to the success of Vivian Liu, I believe, is I literally trust my gut. Like an opportunity presents itself and I just kind of sit with it for a while and I will get an instantaneous yes or an instantaneous no. Now, sometimes logic gets in the way and I decide to pursue an opportunity that I knew in my gut wouldn't work. And I actually fell victim to that earlier this year, which is fine, but it's just a lesson learned. But really, one of the things that truly helps is going outside. I know that sounds so crazy and woo-woo and simple, but I take my dog for a walk and I just kind of noodle on it and I'm like, okay. And literally after like a 20-minute walk, I'm like, yes or no, it's just going to happen or it's not. But one of the things that I use to really measure the success of these kind of gut decisions is I love to keep my business simple. So like you said earlier, I have 0 employees, I have 0 investors, I have a bunch of contractors that help me with things. But really, it's the simplicity of my business that I think allows it to scale and to grow profitably. So I have 2 products. those products solve a very specific pain point. So if women want to wear high heels without pain, they can choose either our classic insole or our couture insole. So it's come to the website, buy, and get off. But in terms of a marketing venture or a marketing decision, I really judge that based on one metric. And I know that as an entrepreneur and an e-commerce business owner, you can kind of drown in data overwhelm. And so I look at my cost per acquisition. How much does it cost to get an order from that specific marketing channel? And while that may be a very simplistic view, because you can look at halo effect and getting the email address so you can market them and all of that kind of stuff, I truly make decisions based on my cost per acquisition.
I love it. So I think one of the key strategies that we really got to look at is, well, two things. I think one thing that people often forget is, like you said, go for a walk. We often tend to overthink, and overthinking leads to, overcomplicating everything, overcomplicating
Absolutely.
overcomplicating metrics, overcomplicating analyses. And that makes just sometimes it's completely useless. Here, what you've done is you've looked at, all right, what do I need to make this business successful? And it's a solution to a very clear problem. And then understanding, what are those metrics that, and what type of numbers that you need to hit in order to be profitable and successful.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And so it's it's a very simplistic way of running a business. But knock on wood, it's worked for me. It works for the type of product that I sell. And we've seen consistent growth year over year since 2016 with kind of this very simplistic approach and very simplistic kind of metric that I look at every single day.
Right. So tell us now, I want to look at, your growth without any employees. So you do have some contractors, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners must be thinking, wow, $4 million, no employees, obviously she must be working all the time. Like, how are you making sure that you're keeping your sanity? And
good question.
I still have time for those walks, while going.
So I started Vivian Liu, my company, with one mission, and that was really for peace and freedom. And so I hated sending my kids off to daycare every day. So my mission was I wanted to walk them to school and be home from them after school every day. And so I still live by that motto. I walk my kids to school every day, and their school lets out at 2:45. So I have a very condensed work day that I can get a lot of stuff done. So I rely a lot on contractors. So I have a team of virtual assistants who handle my customer service. I have a warehouse that handles all fulfillment. And then as needed, I plug people in. So I have a Facebook ad agency. I have a Google ad agency. I manage my own email. I actually like my email. I may be bringing someone on to help me manage email, but graphic design I have assistance with, all of those sorts of things. And I purposely don't have an agency manage more than one cog in the wheel, if you will. While there are several agencies out there that could do all of my online marketing, I don't ever put that responsibility into one agency, just in case things go haywire or fall to the wayside. It's very easy for me to pull out that chunk, and I can plug myself into that hole while I find another agency, so the wheel continues to move. So I don't rely heavily on any one agency, just as a contingency plan. And I know that sometimes introduces conflict into the channel because there's more opinions and there's more things that need to be figured out. I also know that I pay a premium for that approach. And I welcome that because it allows me peace and freedom, and it allows me to sleep at night knowing that if one thing goes haywire, I can plug myself in until I can figure out someone else to fill that hole, if that makes sense.
And I think one of the key takeaways that I'm getting from that is that you're getting different types of, not opinions, but different backgrounds Right? So for example, if you've got someone doing Google ads and Facebook ads, you've got completely different points of views, and you're able to
Yes.
consult. So maybe you don't have a team. And I think that's key. The thing is that you've been able to grow without having, a bunch of employees, but you've managed to surround yourself with external teams, right? Agents
Yes.
and contractors, that at the same time become almost like the people you can brainstorm with all the time,
For
right? So
sure.
they kind
So
of replace. So it's not like you don't have a team. You're really.
correct.
So I think that's really key for people to remember. It's like if you want to, do what you've done, for example, surround yourself with the right people. You were gonna say, Abby?
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. So I always say I don't have employees, and everyone's like, "Wait, you do everything yourself?"
Right.
I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I don't have employees because personally, I don't want that responsibility.
Yep.
But I have contractors, and I know again that pay premium have contractors versus bringing people on board as employees, full-time employees. But I happily pay that premium, and I happily share in the success of
Right.
Vivian Liu. Because it allows me the peace and freedom to walk my kids to school and to take vacations and to do the things that I started Vivian Liu in order to do.
Right. So let's say that, right now we've got entrepreneurs listening that have companies about your size, but they do have a few employees. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that means that they have more people to manage. So
Yes.
it may free up their time, but it still adds a few tasks to their plate. What would be your biggest piece of advice for them? Like, let's say they want to gain a little more freedom, maybe, go more towards a contractor type of thing like you're doing. Where should they start?
Sure. Google. Google's always a good place to start. So Google and then referrals. So I've had really good success with just picking up the phone and asking other companies of like size, who do you use? Or asking if I have a coach, Jada Selner, who is absolutely amazing. And she is very well connected with other entrepreneurs and agencies in this space. And so she often has ideas on agencies or has recommendations. She may not have used them, but just going out and asking who people really trust and who people use.
Right.
One thing that I have fallen victim to is gotten really excited about agencies and then not done my due diligence in terms of getting referrals or asking for can I contact one of your existing or previous contracts or companies that you've worked with, just to make sure that they're a good, this is going to sound so woo-woo, but like a good vibrational fit. They may be super good at something, but they don't match your energy or they don't match necessarily where you're trying to go or how you like to work. And so it's really good to kind of feel those things out before you sign up for a long-term contract or even a month-to-month contract.
Right. And I think that's super key because you don't want to look at them as agencies. They're part of your team. So
Yep.
you want to make sure that these people align, not just with like that they do good work, but you want to make sure they align with your values, with how you work and how you think, because these are going to be partners in your business growth either way.
Yes.
And it's best to have the people that will be there as if they're your coworkers or people that you enjoy spending time with.
So true.
Now, Abby, I'd love to know, because now let's say now we know how to find contractors, but let's say we go and want to offload some work that we've got on our plate. How did you do this? Because like you're growing a business, once you reach millions, and even before reaching 1 million, there's always going to be tons of tough stuff on your plate. So how did you decide what to do first?
So the first thing I did, even before launching Vivian Liu, was I knew that if women were going to rely on me to get product out the door, it wasn't going to happen. So I, even before I was making money, I hired a warehouse. That was like not an option for me. I was going to outsource fulfillment. I was going to outsource warehousing, all of that stuff. The second thing I outsourced, which I should have done sooner, was customer service. So as a business owner, as a young business owner, not age-wise, but in terms of experience, poor reviews really hurt. And I've grown much thicker skin now and know that our insoles don't work for everyone, but it was very hard for me not to get emotionally wrapped up in people's negative comments or wanting to review or, all of those sorts of things. And so as soon as I offered customer service, it was like a huge weight off my shoulders because I was able to look forward versus looking backwards to figure out, what went wrong with shipping, what went wrong with the experience, what went wrong, all of those sorts of things. And so now I have a call with my customer service team weekly where we can review those, but it's an hour of looking backwards and not looking forwards versus having to toggle between looking for growth and then going backwards to solve customer service issues. So, yeah. And then, I held on Facebook advertising. I love Facebook. I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook advertising. So I still dabble in it, even though I have an agency. Yes, I feel like one thing that I do that I think is important for business owners is I think you need to do the task before you outsource it. So all of the pain points, how it's supposed to be done, and how you would like it to be done before you hand it off to someone else, if that makes sense.
Totally. I'm a big believer in that too. So we're definitely on the same page there. Great. Now, as you were offloading those tasks, but from what it sounds like, one of the key things you've been doing is really trying to protect your energy, right? Protect yourself from the things that would drain you and the things that would negatively influence your thinking so you could do what you do best and run the business with a clear mind. So that is super important because I think we don't talk about these things often enough. I think we're very, generally entrepreneurs and anyone, with big jobs, we think of the strategies, the day to day, and yet we forget that, whatever we do in our day, it will be impacted by, the state of our mind. And if we're doing customer support all day and we're just exhausted by, reading all those comments, or if we have to do Facebook ads and it's something that you hate, for example,
right.
And it drives you nuts, like you're not going to be able to run the business or do what you're supposed to do effectively, you're not going to be able to get in that flow if you don't really delegate and keep doing it. So congrats on really, you are the living example of doing that very well.
Thanks.
But now I'd love to know, on the flip side, what are some of the mistakes that you've made when it comes to, delegating more without necessarily adding employees, right? So we're talking here contractors and really building a business based on this.
I would say the biggest mistake, again, that I referred to before was hiring folks without doing a thorough analysis on whether or not they were kind of an energetic, most importantly, I think it needs to be like an energetic personality match.
Right.
And so I got totally swept up by their credentials and what they've done and how they've grown other companies in similar spaces, and not really trusting, again, my gut was saying, I'm not quite so sure. And so my logical brain kicked in and was like, no, like they've proven that they can do this. Right. And so it just wasn't a match, and then you'd have to back out of either a contract or let the contract go or whatnot. But yeah, I feel like that has been my biggest mistake, is not moving forward with the right match of a person or an agency. And then I am a huge believer too in test periods for both people. And so instead of signing long-term contracts, I believe that if a contractor or if an agency really wants your business, you can say, I would love to move forward with you, but I want a 90-day window just to test each other out before signing a 6-month contract or a year-long contract. So I feel like it's giving yourself permission to ask for the things that you want versus going by their standard kind of way of operating. And if they're not willing to kind of be a flexible in that realm, maybe it isn't a good fit for you and your agency. So I guess the things are, again, make sure that they're a match for you personally, and then 2, asking for a test period to test it out. Not necessarily, I think the performance is important, but it's not necessarily performance-based. It's more like personality, energy-based. Like, Are you guys a good match to move forward and help grow your business?
Got it. What are some of the questions that you would ask those agencies or contractors to see if they're a good match or not?
Yeah, I guess really it's not like a specific interview. It's just, having a conversation, and share, like, where did you come from? Here's where I came from. Where do you live? What do you like doing? It's more of uh, like the initial interview for a job, because you've already identified that they're a good match for your business per se, in terms of where you need those holes filled. But
Yep.
whether or not it's a good kind of personality match, and whether or not you want to have an conversation with them every week, and how do you like to communicate? Do they like to have phone calls and you like to email? It's just those very basic things. But I think if you just get along with the person, it's a great kind of foundation to move forward with that relationship.
I agree. I think one of the key things you've mentioned there is, have weekly calls.
Yes.
And, I'm saying this as an agency owner, but also as a business owner, with the contractors that we work with and our own clients, weekly calls with literally whoever you're working with is like the minimum cadence for keeping in touch. And it helps everyone reduce assumptions and just keep
Yes.
the flow in things. It's just so valuable, even if it's just like 5 minutes.
That's what I was just going to say. Even if you don't have anything urgent to talk about, it's so important just to connect and be like, hey, how's it going? Good, good, awesome. You know how to reach me if you need anything. But it's just this like solidifying touch base where, and sometimes just talking to the person will trigger a question that you've had, like, oh, I've been meaning to ask you this and I was going to put it in an email, but it's just easier. Let's just talk through it. And so I totally agree. Weekly calls, even if you don't have anything to talk about, just 5 minutes to connect and then go on your merry way is so important.
Awesome. Now I want to look back at, the growth of your business. So you've grown, in those years by quite a bit, but what would you have done differently? Let's say, when you reached that $1 million mark, because most people who are listening to this have reached about that point. So where exactly, what would you have done differently?
Um, Honestly, I would have gotten out of my own way. So I think I let my ego get in the way and I didn't outsource as fast as I should have.
Hmm.
So I still maintained Facebook ads. I still maintained Google AdWords. I still maintained email. And so it quickly became no longer fun because it
Right.
was a true job. Like, I have to go in there and do this. I have to go in there and do this. And so at that point, I did have the cash flow to invest in contractors and partners that would help me continue to grow the business, but it was my ego that got in the way. Why would I pay them if I know how to do it? And Sarah Blakely says something really interesting, the CEO of Spanx. She's like,
Yep.
if someone you're hiring or someone who you're bringing on can do it at 80% as good as you can, you should bring them in because it frees up your time. And I was like, I knew that quote in the back of my head, but it was just, again, ego and all of this kind of stuff got in the way. I was like, no, why would I pay you if I can do it better and all this kind of stuff? So
Totally.
I wish I would have let go and allowed people to help me infuse new ideas. I mean, working with an agency, you get new creative and new
Yep.
ideas and new thoughts. And again, it wasn't allowing me the space to look forward and to dream bigger because I was so kind of in the daily grind of things. So
Absolutely. Awesome. I mean, that's a very key point. Sometimes it's our baby, especially if it's our,
yes,
and we
yes,
just want to do it. We know how to do it, but it's good to kind of delegate sometimes. And I think one of the key things that people have to remember is that, the first few weeks of that new person or agency working on it, like, it's not going to be done like you're doing it. And it's likely
no,
never going to be done the exact same way. Everybody has a different approach. So we just have to be open to
yes,
that. And see how it
yes.
goes. Awesome, Abby. I'm almost done now. I want to know, who's one person you look up to when growing your business?
Um, There are quite a few, actually. Sarah Blakely, obviously, is the obvious one, but
Yep.
she just is amazing, and has so much fun, and is a mom and has kids and all that kind of stuff, and continue to grow her billion and multi-billion-dollar company. So she's one that I really kind of look up to, and yeah, I think is wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. And my final question, what
Yes.
are some, um, and I think this is really interesting. I'm really excited to hear your answer. What are some of the most valuable tools that you've used to grow your business? And this is, you don't have employees, so I'm excited to see if you've got anything a particular based on this.
So I will give one really obvious tool is Google. I mean, I literally grew this business on Google. And I think it's the most wonderful business tool. If you need HTML, you know where to go. If you need a contractor, you can Google them and find one. But no, Google is phenomenal. Honestly, I would say the biggest tool that has been helpful in me growing my business isn't a business tool at all. It's EFT. And people are going to laugh, but it's the tapping technique. So I would say that my self-limiting beliefs got in my way early on and still get in the way of certain things. And so I have an EFT practitioner that I talk to still on a weekly basis to identify kind of energetic blocks and where I'm stuck. And we bust through those, and I get so much clarity and so much momentum in my business. So,
Awesome.
So I would say the biggest tool is whatever mode or practice you use to eliminate your self-limiting beliefs is the best business tool you can use.
So important, especially for busy executives and entrepreneurs running e-commerce businesses. There's always so many things to do.
Yes.
But, taking some time to meditate or, analyze our own is very often the most important lever we can pull for growth.
There's no question in my mind that is so true. So
awesome.
True.
Abby, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Now, if people want to learn more about Vivienne Liu or you, where should they go? What should they follow?
Sure. So Vivienne Liu, you can find at vivianlou.com, VIVIANLOU.com. You can follow me. I've actually wrote a book about my journey from kind of being a corporate America working mom to transitioning to an entrepreneur. The book's called Strap on a Pair. You can find that at Amazon. You can follow me at abbylouwalker.com. And I just launched a new company too called TAOG, and you can find that at THISISTAOG, TAOG.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's it for today's episode. In the next episode, you'll hear from Adam Trouncer, CEO of Athletic Greens, and you'll learn how he doubled the 8-figure business in the last 12 months and scaled the company so successfully by focusing on customer relationships and brand experience. To make sure you don't miss any of the new episodes, subscribe to the podcast, and if you've liked what you've heard, make sure to leave a review in the iTunes store. That would truly mean the world to me. Now, if you're working on an e-commerce store that does over $1 million in sales and increasing conversions is currently a priority, make sure to go to splitbase.com/assessment. That's splitbase.com/assessment to get a free analysis of your website and find out what's the #1 action item our conversion experts recommend you do next to boost conversions. If you have any guest requests, questions, or comments, tweet me at rpaulindaigle, that's RPAULINDAIGLE, and I'll be happy to hear from you. Thanks again for listening. This is Minds of E-Commerce.